Hey everybody, welcome back. This is going to be the second part of the Gods and Goddesses of Olympus by Aliki. Yesterday, or last video, we read about the origin of the gods, how Zeus overthrew his father Cronus, who had overthrown his father Uranus, to become the king of the gods. And in this part, we're going to read about him and the rest of his brothers and sisters that became the primary deities, the primary gods and goddesses of Greek mythology. We're not going to be using all of the what I read today in our lesson for lesson number 2, but I'm going to read the rest of the book because there's some other gods in there that are really interesting, and we're likely to see them. We're actually going to see all of them when we read The Lightning Thief, and so it's good to have a good idea about who they are, and it's a pretty short read, so it won't hurt to do it. So here we go. We're going to start off on page with Zeus, which is page number 18. And just like last time, I'll do my best to zoom out and show you the pictures as we continue reading. Right now, we've got Zeus over there, and some pictures about him here as well. Zeus, king of the gods, god of heaven and earth, son of Cronus and Rhea. Zeus was everywhere, seen and unseen. He changed his shape as easily as he changed the weather. He moved the sun and the moon and put constellations in the sky. He protected everyone, gods and mortals alike. In danger, Zeus hurled his thunderbolt to punish those who deserved it, but he was also wise and fair, and generous with his praise. Zeus first married Metis, but he made Hera his queen. Zeus and Hera bickered constantly, for Zeus had many other wives, goddesses, nymphs, and mortals, and had many children too. Hera was jealous of them all. Hera was beautiful and headstrong. Zeus won her when he turned himself into a cuckoo, and he flew into her arms, sheltered from the rain. The wedding was so happy it lasted 300 years. But things changed. Though Hera helped and advised Zeus and bore him children, jealousy darkened her days. She hated her husband's adventures. She schemed against his many wives and children and caused them to hide in fear. Once, in anger, Hera even dared to steal Zeus's thunderbolt. But his temper was strong. He hung her up from the sky with anvils tied to her feet, and freed her only when she repented. Yeah, Hera and Zeus had a very rough relationship. Zeus is, in general, not a great guy. So there's Hera. There's a scene in the back of Zeus tying Hera up. Doesn't tell you, but in original Greek mythology, that lasts for thousands of years. He ties her up. And then more information. Hera, goddess of marriage and children, daughter of Cronus and Rhea. Hephaestus was born with bad luck. He was so weak and lame, Hera took one look at him and dropped him out of Olympus. He fell for a day and was rescued by the sea goddess, Thetis, and her sisters. They took him to their underwater grotto, and there he lived in secret. Hephaestus' body grew strong, though he could never walk. He became a master craftsman and made beautiful objects of gold in his smithy. Many he gave to the goddesses as thanks for their kindness. 9 years later, Hera saw Thetis wearing an exquisite brooch and demanded to know who had made it. When Hera heard it was Hephaestus, she regretted her actions. She called him back to Olympus, allowed him to marry Aphrodite, and created an even bigger workshop for him. Hephaestus became the worker of the gods. He made them golden palaces, chariots, weapons, and tools. For himself, he invented 2 golden maidens who helped him move about. His artistry was the pride of Olympus. Hephaestus there, god of fire and blacksmith, son of Zeus and Hera. This picture of Hephaestus being thrown off Mount Olympus, being caught by the sea goddess Thetis, and him making materials there, and a picture of him working the forge, which is what he's known for doing. Aphrodite had no parents. She rose out of the sea on a cushion of foam. She was so beautiful, love bloomed around her, and sometimes jealousy. Despite Hera's protests, Zeus gave Aphrodite a throne on Olympus and made her Hephaestus' wife. But she wasn't always true to her homely husband, for Aphrodite wore a magic girdle that made love flare up among the gods. Even Ares was a victim of her beauty, though he loved war more. She is beautiful, Aphrodite. Not wearing many clothes. Goddess of love and beauty. And over here, she is again, with the dove and Cupid up there in the corner, which is a sign that is connected with her. And some roses. Eros was wild and mischievous. Some say he was born at the beginning of time. Some say he was the son of Aphrodite and Ares. Eros' greatest delight was to zip around shooting arrows of desire into innocent victims. Instantly they fell in love, whether they wanted to or not, and no one could stop him, not even Zeus. So you guys may have heard of Cupid. That's who Cupid is based off Eros. Shooting arrows into people's hearts and making them fall in love even if they didn't want to. Causing all sorts of issues. Ares was a god not even a mother could like. He was a cruel, bad-tempered coward who loved war. The bloodier the battle, the better. In defeat, he was a bad loser. If he was wounded, he startled even the gods with his pitiful tears. Ares stirred up trouble wherever he went. Except for Aphrodite, no one wanted him around. A picture of Ares, god of war. See all the blood and death behind him. Son of Zeus and Hera. Poseidon was moody. His temperature could be as violent as the seas he ruled. He shook his trident, and leaping waves flooded the land. He struck the earth, and mountains erupted. When he was calm, rivers dried, and islands formed. Poseidon created the first horse from a rock with one blow. He raced the waves and traveled to Olympus in his golden horse-drawn chariot. Most of the time, Poseidon lived in a golden underwater palace with his queen, Amphitrite, a lovely sea goddess. They had 3 children together, though Poseidon had many more. Like Zeus, he could not resist goddess, nymphs, or mortals. And here's Poseidon, god of the sea and earthquakes. There was his chariot of horses that he created. A lot of the sea animals that he was riding over. Look at that handsome face. His trident, the horse, and the beard. Athena had a most unusual birth. She sure did. Zeus had been warned that if Metis bore a son, he would depose Zeus just as Zeus and Cronus had deposed their own fathers. Though Zeus needed wise Metis' advice, he took no chances. One day he lured Metis close with his sweet words and swallowed her. Soon after, Zeus was hit by a horrible headache. He howled for help. Hephaestus fetched his axe and split open Zeus's head. Out sprang Athena, armed for action. Immediately, she became her father's favorite advisor. Athena was a warrior who hated war. She admired courage and fairness and sought peaceful ways to settle fights. She also invented many things: the flute, the trumpet, farm tools, and the olive tree. She taught the arts of cooking, spinning, and weaving. Athena had no time for marriage. There's Zeus and Metis. And then there's Athena, goddess of war and arts and crafts. Really good example of... and that's Zeus, whose head got split by Hephaestus, so that Athena would birth out. It's a weird story. Mythology. Hermes. Hermes was born ready for action. As his mother slept in her cave, he slipped out of his cradle and went looking for adventure. He saw a tortoise, killed it, and invented the lyre, which is kind of a guitar, from its shell. As he taught himself to play the instrument, he spied his brother Apollo's cows and stole them. Cunningly, he swept away their hoofprints, and Apollo couldn't find them anywhere. When little Hermes confessed his trick, his brother was furious. But Hermes was shrewd. He knew Apollo loved music and offered him the lyre for the cows. Apollo gave him the cows and more, and left happily with the lyre. Zeus was amused by his clever son, but scolded him too. Hermes promised to steal or lie again. Not much, anyway. If Zeus gave him a throne on Olympus. Zeus couldn't resist. Hermes could talk anyone into anything. Hermes grew up to be Zeus's personal messenger and helper. He traveled as fast as the wind on winged sandals. He guided souls of the dead to Hades and brought good luck to travelers everywhere. So Hermes zipping around, escaping his cave where he was born, making the lyre, getting the cows from Apollo. This messenger of Zeus, herald of the gods, son of Zeus, and the nymph Maya. And there he is again, just zooming around, taking people to dead, delivering messengers. Very busy dude. Artemis was just minutes old when she helped with the birth of her twin, Apollo. Jealous Hera had been chasing their mother, Leto, all over the world. Artemis found her a safe place to rest, carried there by the south wind. One day, her proud father asked Artemis what present she would like. Artemis knew exactly what she wanted. She asked for a bow and arrows like Apollo's so they could hunt together. She asked for a band of nymphs for companions. She asked to stay young forever and never have to marry. Zeus granted all her wishes and more. Artemis was determined and fought for what she wanted. Her arrows stung, and she could cause suffering, but she loved animals and children and protected them. Zeus and Artemis sitting there. Goddess of the moon, wildlife hunting, and chastity. Daughter of Zeus and the goddess Leto, twin sister of Apollo. Over here, there's Apollo, then Artemis right next to him. Apollo grew up quickly, as gods do. When he was 4 days old, he asked Hephaestus to make him a silver bow and arrows. Then off he went to kill the dreaded serpent Python, which Hera had sent to kill his mother. Apollo was dangerous with his arrows. He punished the guilty, sometimes with the help of Artemis, his twin sister. They were close friends, and both were great archers. Yet Apollo was thoughtful. He advised others that one should search to know oneself. He also believed one should not overdo anything. He said, pan metron ariston, which means everything in moderation. Apollo had a tender side to him, too. He healed the sick, cared for animals, and brought delight with his music. No one played the lyre as well, and no one sung as sweetly as Apollo. There's the python that he went to kill with his arrows, even when he was just 4 days old. The animals that he watches over, his mother and twin sister. It says, God of the sun, music, poetry, archery, healing, and prophecy. He was the son of Zeus and the goddess Leto. This is him playing his lyre. A few more gods. Hades was as grim and gloomy as the underworld where he lived. He was also rich, for all the treasures in the ground were his. Hades rarely left his dark kingdom of the dead. When Hermes brought souls of the dead to him, he prodded the unwilling ones into the shadows. He saw that none escaped. Cerberus, his three-headed dog, stood guard at the locked gate. But Hades grew lonely and wanted a wife. Zeus said he could have his daughter, Persephone, but Zeus knew she would not want to part with her mother, Demeter, to live in Hades' gloomy kingdom. Nor would Demeter let her go, so Zeus told Hades to kidnap Persephone. Hades rode up into the brilliant sunshine, and that is what he did. There's Cerberus, the three-headed dog, and Hades there. Dead people going over the river Styx, and Hermes delivering messages and the souls. There's Hades again. Up into the light. There's Persephone and Demeter. Demeter and Persephone were always together. Gentle Demeter loved her daughter and took her wherever she went as she tended her grain fields. But one day their joy vanished. As Persephone was out with friends picking flowers, she disappeared. No one saw what happened, not even Demeter. She did not see Hades charge up in his chariot and snatch the lovely Persephone. She did not see him take her down to the dark underworld to make her his queen. She did not hear her scream and cry for her mother. Demeter searched the earth for Persephone. She grew haggard and neglected her fields. At last she heard what had happened. Furious, she told Zeus that until Persephone was returned, she would cause a famine, and she did. Soon fields were barren, crops and trees withered, animals and people starved. Zeus saw that Demeter meant her words. He sent Hermes to fetch Persephone from Hades. But Persephone had been tricked into eating 4 pomegranate seeds, the food of the dead. That means she could not leave Hades forever. For 4 bleak months a year, one for every seed, she had to return to the underworld as Hades' queen. Then spring came, the land turned green, and flowers bloomed. For Demeter and Persephone were together again. Get a full story for that one. That's the Greek mythology explanation for winter. That when Persephone goes to the underworld, things wither and die, like they do in wintertime, and then when she comes back, they start to grow again. The goddess of the harvest, grain, and fertility. She's the daughter of Cronus and Rhea, and mother of Persephone, Demeter is. Persephone is there. Dionysus' mother was struck dead by lightning before he was born. It was an accident caused by jealous Hera. Zeus rescued his unborn son and sewed him up in his own thigh, and there he stayed until he was born. Dionysus was hidden from Hera's sight and was raised among nymphs and wild animals. But eventually Hera found him and drove him mad. As in crazy, not just angry. Dionysus traveled the world over, teaching the art of winemaking. With him went a band of wild satyrs and maenads. They danced in a frenzy and raised a rumpus wherever they went. Hera had driven them mad too. Later, Dionysus recovered and, despite Hera's protest, was welcomed into Olympus. Kind Hestia gave up her throne for him. She was comfortable by the hearth. Dionysus, god of wine and vegetation, son of Zeus and the mortal princess Semele. His mother dying, Zeus raising him in his own thigh, returning back. When he became older, he liked to have parties. Hestia rarely left her place by the hearth. She saw that the sacred fire of Olympus never died out. She protected every household and hearth on earth and was honored by gods and mortals alike. Hestia, the gentlest of the Olympians, chose not to marry. She had enough to do as the peacemaker of her quarrelsome family. Yet, despite all their quarrels, there were harmonious times too. Times when they all, each unique god and goddess of Olympus, ascended to their thrones. And they were magnificent. There's Hestia tending the hearth, the fire. And here's a full shot of all 12 in their thrones, and Hestia tending the hearth, and Hades in the underworld. And the postscript says, in this book are just a few of the many Greek myths that have been told over thousands of years. In various versions, the myths have been passed on to us, first orally, or by mouth, then written down by scholars through the ages. The myths have influenced many cultures. Even the Romans modeled their gods and goddesses on the Greek ones. The myths have endured the test of time. Even today, the gods are valued for their human qualities, their humor, their lessons, and their wisdom. They have become part of our lives in ways we don't even notice. The next time you hear a clap of thunder, or feel the wind, or see golden wheat swaying in the fields, or hear exquisite music, what will you think? Is that Zeus shaking his thunderbolt, or Hermes flying past? Is it Demeter playing with her Persephone? Is that Apollo's song filling our ears? They are still with us. I hope you enjoyed learning about all those different gods and goddesses. We'll encounter them in The Lightning Thief and some of the other stories and books that we'll be reading. And we'll see you in Lesson 2.